Welcome to He Said, She Said. Hey, Kyle.
Hey Laura, what's up?
Oh, just another night in the life.
Good deal. You've got an interesting topic for us tonight, and I'm just going to let you jump right into it.
I'm going to jump right in then. You wrote a blog post that I read, and I could barely get past the first line, and I was like, ooh, 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 I want to talk about that.
Okay.
And your first line, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have it pulled up in front of me, was I knew I really liked or loved. I don't know. Give me your.
I said I knew that the Queen was extraordinary when I
Okay.
didn't want to sleep with her.
Yes. Okay. I knew the Queen was extraordinary when I didn't want to sleep with her. And
Right.
for those that are new to this, the Queen is your partner and your love.
Absolutely.
And so I was really taken by that statement because this subject of to bed or not to bed on the first date, it comes up a lot. It comes up all the time in the work that I do and with my clients who are newly single, right? Post-divorce, newly single, and not sure about what the rules are, 15, 20 years later since they were single the last time.
Right. So I think there's a couple of things that we have to put into context here. Okay.
Okay.
If we're talking about divorced people, okay, and they're in their 30s or 40s and they have children and all that stuff, let's just get this out of the way right now. They're no longer virgins. Okay? I think the first thing you have to deal with if you are divorced and you're moving back into the dating arena again is how are you going to deal with that? Okay?
I think that there's a lot of confusion around dating, sex, sexuality, love. I think there's I think that there's a lot of confusion around what those each mean and how they integrate with one another because individuals, and I think men and women coming out of marriages where the sexual health of the marriage wasn't great, it wasn't healthy,
Right.
Are coming out and are either looking really forward to getting back on that sex wagon or are a little scared about it. And maybe women are more scared of that and unsure, I should say. And I think that dating always seems to be let me just start dating and it'll kind of solve the problem when really it's about regaining and reclaiming and reconnecting to your own sexuality. And how do you do that in a way that also honors how you want to date? I think that's a confusing thing for people.
I think that's a very good way of putting it. How are you going to use sex to honor the way you want to date? Because that can get sideways quickly. All right? I mean, I don't know if there's many divorced people who, as soon as the papers are signed, did not get on the crazy train for a while. I made the comment earlier about regaining your sexuality, and I guess that may have something more to do with women than men. I don't know if men really have to regain it. I don't think they ever lost it. However, do you find with these women that you're talking with about regaining their sexuality that becomes the centerpiece of their dating life?
It can. But they don't recognize that that's what's happening. And
well, how would they know?
how would they know? They'd have to be aware of why they're doing what they're doing. And that's where I think things get confusing. So let me share with you, and I guess anyone else who's watching, that I don't think that sex equals love. I don't equate the two.
I would
Um,
agree with that.
for me, that's never something that has been confusing. Um, and I I think that so many women are not really in touch with their sexuality and comfortable with their sexuality, and so it plays out in the dating arena really badly, because it's not a tool to get someone to like you. You know, sex, that is not what sex is. I am a believer that there can be different kinds of sex. I think that there can be sex for um, reconnecting to our sexuality, or sexual, I don't know, sexual play, sexual experiences that can be part of that journey. And then I believe that there is the sex that is part of an intimate, loving, intentional partnership and romance. And I think that they can be different. And I think that they have, I believe, and I know others may not, and it's each person's individual right, but sex can play a role in reconnecting to your sexuality, but again, that has to be an intentional choice as well. It has to be something that you're in.
Do you think that it's possible to have a sexual relationship that's void of any of the legitimate emotions that I think that are inherent with sex? Love, affection, um, thoughts like that.
I think that if there is sex that is void of all legitimate emotions, that it feels really bad.
I guess I'm asking that question because I believe that at least for new divorcees,
Hmm.
I think that's where most relationships go. They've been in a marriage, they've been in an awful marriage for a long time, and whether it's men or women, the last thing that they want immediately out of that is to go back into something similar to that. There are
Hmm.
some that do, okay, but I think for the vast majority, though, they want to move out of it, at least for a period of time, okay? However, they want some form of connection. They want to date, they want to hang out, they want to have someone to do with on a Saturday night. Okay, they want all of those things. Invariably, if that will lead to something more at least physical. I
Correct.
think that's going to happen. The decision has to be made. Am I willing to go down that path? All right. And am I willing to attempt to shut off all of the emotions that come with it for most? Not
Hmm.
all right? I'm not going to paint everybody with the same brush, but for most. And I'll also include men in that because men seem to have this persona that they can act out without any emotion at all. And I think that for a short period of time, they can. All right. I mean, we just came off of Sex Scandal Weekend 2012, where three men, corporate America, the head of the CIA, just got discovered with affairs on their wives. All three of them. All right. These are guys here who obviously did not have, they had enough emotion into it, Laura, that they gave up their careers for it.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
one night stand, you might be able to get. There's no emotion. Eventually, though, even for men, a continual sexual relationship is going to lead. They can't shut off their emotions forever. They can't.
I wholeheartedly agree. Unless I'm in love with someone, right? Unless I get into a new relationship, do I just not have sex? When they're really at a juncture after their marriage to I really think need to re-engage with their sexuality and to play with that. And when I say sexuality, it doesn't mean sex necessarily, but it there let me use myself as an example. How about if I just use myself?
Go ahead.
So I came out of my marriage, and it was a long, it was a long marriage. It was 15 years, and I wasn't ready for to be in another full on, full out relationship. I wasn't ready. I knew enough to know that I wasn't ready. However, I wanted to have sex. And I wanted to feel sexual again. I wanted to feel sensual again. I wanted to feel sexy again. I wanted to tap into that. I wanted to flirt again. I wanted to have a first kiss. I wanted to do all of those things. And so I did. And I gave myself permission to do that. But the caveat was I knew what I was doing. I took the time that I needed to understand what I needed, what I wanted, and I went about it in a very open and honest way with anyone that I met. Anyone, if I was going to be in a dating situation where sex was on the table, I also gave full disclosure that I was in no way ready for and willing to be in this was going to be a friends with benefits situation. This was not going to be a new long-term committed relationship because I couldn't give all the rest. I just couldn't.
Right. Right. You asked the question earlier, something along the lines of, if that's what these individuals want when they come out of, of a divorce, and what is that going to look like? Are they going to, as you said, are they going to have sex or are they not? You made a very important statement, and I think it speaks to the fact that it is impossible to separate emotion from sex indefinitely. And here's why. Because you had to create boundaries before you ever entered into it.
That's exactly right.
You had to create rules and regulations, hard stops. This is what we will do and this is what we won't do. Pretty much that whole gambit. It was on those terms because whether you knew it or not, I think it speaks to the fact that we can't separate sex and emotions indefinitely. It is impossible. And I think that is the warning that I would provide people who are really going down that path. You have to be very clear of what you're getting into because hearts are broken every day on relationships that they thought were one way actually turned out to be differently. And the reason why was because sex.
I will tell you that when I met Drew, I had already made not the decision, I had already recognized that I was, in fact, this was years later now, I was ready and open to another full-on, full-out relationship. Mm-hmm. And when I met Drew, I took sex off the table for a while.
Now, I'm going to ask about that because, and I don't want to get personal, but I think that's interesting because
really, you don't want to get personal after all of this?
Well, I don't want you to get detailed, but it was a very good point, and it speaks to what we talked about at the very beginning. When I made the statement in that post, I said I knew that the Queen was extraordinary when I didn't want to go to sleep with her. I didn't want to sleep with her. So, why was it that you had made the decision to take sex off the table? what changed your mind? What was it that flipped the switch that you realized I don't want to do it this way with him?
It it was my immediate connection to him and the vulnerability that I felt at that moment, knowing that I want to get to know this guy and I don't want to confuse my getting to know him with the sex crazy train, the you know, and I knew. Listen, I believe that that's a critically important part of any healthy and extraordinary relationship. That there has to be a sexual chemistry, but that's not going to make or break it. You know, relationship will not be built on amazing sex, and I felt that I needed to slow down that emotional train and just give it a little time to kind of get to know him a bit before we went down that road. It was different. My readiness was different. My use of sex. I hate to say it like that, but my use of sex at that time was very different. It was now going to become a means of expressing how I felt rather than a means of reconnecting to my own sexuality, if that makes
A lot
sense.
of people have said, well, sex in the first date can lead to relationships. Okay, maybe it can, but here's what I'll bet you. I will bet you this, that if sex is part of the formation of the beginning of that relationship, from right out the chute, right? It'll be the centerpiece of that relationship. And as soon as the sex dries up, the relationship will be over. Think about that for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
You made the statement earlier that you didn't want sex, you didn't want to get on the sex crazy train with him. You wanted to get to know him better. You proved that point just by the way that you handled the relationship with him.
That's right. Right. Exactly. And I think people forget that they're in control of this.
Well,
This is not an out of body
women are in
experience.
control of this. Let there be no
Right.
doubt.
That is correct.
They are. I put in that article I wrote, I said, the boundaries of a sexual relationship are always dictated by the woman. That sexual relationship will only go as far as she will allow it to go. And that is a
What
fact.
is so hard for so many women, I think, after divorce, is this internal struggle between wanting to be needed and wanting to be loved, and being able to set boundaries, honor also who they really are. And it's this constant kind of beating up. They come smashing into one another, and that's why I feel so strongly that that women need to find ways to feel good and feel loved and all those kinds of things, so that they don't seek out that as the vehicle for that. If sex is going to be part of a sexual exploration and you're in control of that exploration, and you want to tap back into it, and there's a way to do that that can be healthy, safe, and honest, but you have to step back and be aware of what's going on and be in control of what's going on, and I think so many are not. Final thoughts. Final thoughts are that we're grown-ups, right? Again, to your point at the very beginning, that you've been married, you've been divorced. We're grown-ups now. We're not 16 where somebody is saying, you may not do that, or you have to sneak in the house. You can give yourself permission, but you have to be aware, and so do the work you have to do to understand what it is that you want to get from sex, and then you can figure out how you want to play with it, how you want to use it in your dating, and you know, your search for love and connection, really.
I would say this, and this is directly to the women, that you control the sexual dynamic in any relationship that you are in. If you deny that, you're crazy. Let me encourage you that don't go there right away, because if you want to have your heart broken quickly, that's the easiest way to get there. All right? If you're going to go down that path, and to your point, I think you said earlier, reconnect with your sexuality, just know the fire that you are playing with, okay? And create boundaries that are non-negotiables. And then stick to them when the time gets tough. That's all I got. Laura, it's always fun.
Always fun. Love it.
We'll talk to you next time. Have a great week.